So if you imagine what you're seeing on my hand right now as a crack, almost like in reality, if you look through it, you will start seeing the details in such a way that all of a sudden it becomes this code.
Today's guest found scientific evidence that we are in a simulation. How many people have done the DMT laser experiment at this point?
I would say a few thousands. The code is extremely coherent, very sophisticated, super HD, and no matter what angle you look from, no matter who you are, it never resets into something else. Always the same characters.
As a boy, he learned about black holes from his grandfather, who was a nuclear physicist, sparking his obsession with the secrets of the universe.
Ever since I was a little kid, if I would just sit down and have nothing to do, the first place my mind goes to is what is outside of the universe.
But after years of experimenting with psychedelics and encountering various entities, he stumbled upon something that could alter how humans view reality forever.
So there's something that happened a couple of days ago. I'll say this, if we can take a snapshot of it, frozen, well, now we have something serious to actually investigate.
In this episode, we'll dive into the laser experiment that exposed how our universe is written, explore why hundreds of people are seeing the exact same alien code, and investigate if this is just a mass hallucination or proof that we are living inside the Matrix.
Simulation doesn't mean fake. It just means we are living in a computationally rendered environment. God doesn't know why everything exists, and that's why all the simulations happen, because it's God trying to...
Danny Goler, welcome to the Jack Neel Podcast.
Thank you for having me, brother. It's an honor.
Danny, you found compelling evidence that humans are living inside a virtual reality. Joe Rogan was fascinated by your experiment, and we were actually introduced to each other by a guest who's been on our podcast twice, Chase Hughes. How did you use a laser to prove that we're living in a simulation?
When I've had psychedelic experiences, I've had a lot of them in my life, and because I knew kind of what's in the cards, even though it can be a broad variety of what can happen to you in psychedelics, when you do it long enough, you start to understand kind of what you should expect, like where is it, right? And things started happening to me at a certain point that are outside of that. It's just too real. It became almost like you sitting right in front of me right now. This, of course, can technically be just in my head, but is there anything I can do to determine that? Like, if it's real, if it is in fact real, like when we do DMT, do we go to like a real space versus just hallucinating it? And then I started asking myself the question, is there any method, way of thinking, kinds of questions we can ask that can help us determine that? And that's the kind of modality, kind of thought process that I started going through that eventually landed me on the idea that lasers are supposed to be doing something. So if the space is real, then it would have to have some rules. Just like we have the laws of physics, every environment that is operating by rules and has some laws of physics. That would mean it would have some geometry, it would have some topology, it would have some boundaries of some sort. I knew that light had to be involved because when you're having psychedelic experiences, you can see it with your eyes. Very often, you see something in your immediate environment that changes in a way that you simply didn't have access to before. So all of these ideas were kind of hovering in my head, and I said, okay, well, I know light is involved 100% because I can see it when it's happening. I know that sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't, which means there's a boundary of some sort. And I started asking, can I probe that boundary? Is there any way to probe whatever that boundary is? And it took me years of thinking about it, reading papers, trying to, go into the psychedelic space and ask the aliens how to do it. I tried to do all kinds of things with magnets and just trying to see if I can maybe shift my attention in a way that will allow me to see other things. There's a lot of things that I tried, but nothing really worked. And eventually, I had this idea that we know that when quantum computers do what they do, they interact with a decoherence moment of a particle communicating with basically instances of itself across the multiplicity of the different worlds. Now, it might sound like crazy out there, but that's mainstream physics, and we have a device that works thanks to this fact, so quantum computers. And the second I had that thought, it's almost like something grabbed me by the shoulders and said, yes, look there. Look at distribution of light, decoherence, that kind of stuff. The idea of the laser was born. I knew that something with coherent light was supposed to happen, and specifically with diffraction. And I didn't know what it was, but when I tried it, I saw this, what now people know is the code in the laser. And of course, the first thing to admit is that we have no idea what it is. We don't know its code. We don't know its language. It just seems to be that way. But when I saw it, it had a certain reality to it and rigidity that hallucinations simply don't have. That's what makes it stand out. Then actually, it's a little bit more mundane than hallucinations in the DMT space. It's not this like wacky, crazy, it's just kind of like a holographic, some kind of a self-executing clock of some sort. And you can see it very clearly. It's not like a fuzzy, it's very clear.
So typically when people do psychedelics and have these experiences, they'll see beings or like space is kind of altered and it's kind of like moving and not really clear. But when you did this experiment, what you found was like ultra clear and feels more real than anything else.
To be fair, on DMT, you do encounter quite a few things that feel also this way. Like they're super coherent on their own right and they have their own rules and they feel very real. But I think maybe the thing that really makes the code stand out is also that it's very repeatable and it never changes from what it is. It's doing a thing. So like it's moving and doing things, but not in relationship to what you're doing. So you can do whatever. You can move around it. You can move the light across it. So it doesn't move with the lights. It just kind of moves like you're putting a flashlight in the dark on something. You can try and perturb it. You can try play music. Like if you would imagine it's a hallucination, right? Something would have to slightly shift if it's a hallucination when you play certain music for yourself, right? Or play binaural beats or something, like because you're doing something to your consciousness, right? Because if it's a product of your consciousness, when you add something to your consciousness, something should happen to the thing, right? Or at least it's very plausible. With the code, it doesn't matter. It makes no difference whatsoever. Not the surface, not the person, not the time, not the whatever else you introduced to the picture. Always doing the same thing. Always the same symbols.
So let me see it really quick because sure. I just want to visualize. So like imagine you're talking to Elon Musk and you have 30 seconds with him and he knows what DMT is. He knows it puts you in this different space. Mm-hmm. And you're like, hey, when you do this is what happens. Explain it to me kind of like that.
Wow, man, that's a great way to think about that. Elevator pitch to Elon. So you can use any diffracted laser, which diffracted just means just like all the stuff that you see when the barcode scanner in a supermarket, that's what diffraction is.
It's just like spread out light.
So diffraction is any moment where light bounces off of something. Let's just start there. With the case of diffracting lenses, they are designed for the exact wavelength of the light. So if it's 650 nanometers, the slits that are on the lens are designed to be at the exact distance that matches 650 nanometers. And if you change the nanometer, you need a different lens with a different spacing between What that does, it allows to break the light very coherently. And basically, so if you project this, right? So instead of a laser pointer, you have this pattern. It doesn't have to be an X. It can be a band of light as well. As long as it's a diffracted lens, which just, honestly, you just buy it on Amazon with the diffracted lens. Very simple. And through this window, so if you imagine what you're seeing on my hand right now as a crack, almost like in reality, almost like a window, if you look through it at what people call the speckle, so like the shiny stuff inside, you will start seeing the details of the speckle in such a way that all of a sudden it becomes this code. And to be quite honest, it's more than just code. It looks like some kind of a hyperstructure that the code makes, which is actually the thing that really convinces you that something is going on here. The code is extremely coherent, very sophisticated, very clear, super HD, but it makes up a mega structure of some sort. It's a field of buckyballs, or you can think of it like soccer balls, arranged along columns, and the light rotates. I'm going to put it down just a second to illustrate. The characters, they rotate around these balls, and also these enormous columns on which these balls sit, and they kind of go back and forth. And also each character switches in one spot. So they kind of go like, like the old briefcases, like that. And it's all moving at the same time, but not in like craziness, like super, super clear. Like you're looking at some kind of a mechanism of some sort. And no matter what angle you look from, no matter who you are, you can look away, you can look back, you can blink, it never resets into something else. Always the same characters.
So show it to me again for a second. Yeah. So does it matter how much?
Yeah, usually in the beginning, before you saw it for the first time, you would have to smoke just a little bit more just to be deeper in state because it's easier to see.
Mm.
We
and
don't
then
know.
I would see what on that line. It would be different characters.
You would have to look inside the line. So if you look at the surface, it would actually probably miss it. So it's not on the surface, which is what you would expect the hallucinations to be on. It's inside of this. So imagine that the red line is a window and you're looking through the window versus looking at a smudge on the window.
Right. And then the text looks like, is it kanji writing or is it?
It's not a language we know, but the closest things to what it kind of appears to be is katakana, kanji, Hebrew, Aramaic, something like an ancient language of some sort, or some of the Asian languages. But it's none of those. So I had people who speak Japanese who saw it and said it's definitely not Japanese. But we now created a library of all the people's reports.
So if you and I are on DMT, we'll see the exact same symbols in that spot.
Yeah, it's hard to say because there's a lot. Like I'm thinking from the skeptical mind, right? If you're skeptical, it would be hard for me to convince you that how do I know that we're seeing the same thing? And that's,
if we write it down.
You can't because there's too many of them too fast. So you can, but it would be you kind of have to borrow from immediate memory. Does that make sense? Like it's not like you're transcribing it. They're moving so fast. There's millions of them. Your brain drowns in information. Clear enough for you to clearly see that something's going on, but not every time you try to catch one, it's kind of like, oh, like it just, where'd it go? So you have to do it for quite a while before some of them repeat themselves enough. You go like, okay. So there's quite a few that we found that are like, definitely this one. And everybody who saw the code agree that, yeah, that character is there. But I'll be honest with you, even though this is obviously everybody's interest, like, can you transcribe it? Can you write it down? For me, the question is more about the structure itself. What are we looking at? What is this? And also it's a little easier to study because I think that up until the moment that you have some advanced version of Neuralink that can record directly from the cortex of something, then you can play with, okay, let's feed it into ChatGPT or whatever. Until that moment comes, I feel like it's a much safer bet to try and see if we can perturb the observation of the code in some way. Because what that would do, it would nullify the need to show it to like millions of people. So if I show it to 1 million people right now and 80% agree to what they see, it will still not be as powerful as me turning on some device and all of a sudden 2 people or 3 people in a room go, oh, what is that over there? So we did something to it, right? The second you did something to it, anything at all, just even to the observation of it, now we have a handle. They're like, what is going on? Why is this thing changing it this way for different people, right? Now we can start asking questions. And then in the context of something like this happening, now you can say, okay, well, did any of the characters change where we saw the change happen? Now the characters become relevant. If you're studying an ancient language, even though there's a lot to guess, it's not infinite things to guess because you know what human languages are like. There's certain universal truths about human languages. Zipf's law, there's all kinds of things. And we know there's only so many ways in which people build syntax and things like this because of the architecture of our brain. So there's a lot of information just by the fact that you know it's a human language. But with something like this, if you don't know the first thing about what it really is, you're guessing from an infinite space of possibilities. And in that case, I feel like you might run into an infinite dead end instead of actually sitting on something a little bit more solid, you know? So I think it definitely, we want to create some perturbation to it first before we start studying the specifics of the language.
What was your reaction when you first saw the characters?
I'll be honest, I actually couldn't believe that it worked because for years I was trying to do something with it. I was trying to figure out what might do something. And then when I saw it, my now wife, she was sitting in a room and I said, there's a code on the wall. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, I said it, like there's a code on the wall. And she said, I don't understand. I said, well, I don't know how else to say it in English. Like it's literally what I'm reporting is what I'm seeing is what I'm reporting. And then I realized there's a few reasons why it doesn't fully compute. First one is if you're not on it and you're not seeing how coherent it is, the first thought that comes to people's minds is, well, hey man, you're on DMT. That's literally the most hallucinogenic drug known to man. Why are you surprised by seeing anything, right? That's kind of the thought I would assume. But no, it's actually very surprising how stable it is. It's really, just like Chase said, it's just like you can kind of move around it. It's just doing its thing. And that's the thing that also lends it for actual investigation.
Did your wife do DMT right after? Like, who was the second person to see the code?
My friend Tim. My wife was not, it was never kind of like part of her realm. But she eventually saw it and same reaction. And she's very, kind of very, I guess you can say mainstream thinker. That she's super smart, but she like kind of perceives the world through this more regular world lens, at least when it comes to like everything has to do with claims about reality. And she was very surprised when she fully saw it. I think the surprise is around the how stable it is.
What was your reaction when Tim was like, I see it?
That's the thing that when things really changed. Because when another person saw the same thing and I was as blown away by it, that's when I knew that I have something. Because up until that point, it was the beginning of my 30s, which is usually when, if schizophrenic outbreaks happen, that's kind of around that time. And I was like, well, I don't feel weird or crazy, but that's what all crazy people probably think. But maybe it's like a really cool trick that I taught my mind how to do. There was all kinds of thoughts that I had about, oh, I just cracked like a really cool trick with DMT or something. And when another person saw the same thing, I told him, if I remember correctly, I told him nothing. And then he just saw it and he started reporting it. And we were like, what? And I started showing people. And at about person 80, I was like, okay, I got to email a scientist or something because this is bananas. So then I, started. That's when it really started hitting me. Like, what is the gravity of what's going on? And obviously, as you can imagine, like just take yourself through writing that email. Like, what do you say, right? So I tried. I emailed all kinds of people. Gary Nolan, who's a known scientist in kind of like the UFO, investigation space. Donald Hoffman. He actually responded. He was just going through, back then he was going through like a big, I think, heart surgery or something, and he was just recovering. He was still kind enough to respond, but he was just recovering, so it was the wrong time. So basically, I realized that I'm going to have to do way more than just try and like get people interested through an email. So I started talking about it online. And then slowly but surely, it got more and more and more people interested. It went through these iterations of people obviously thinking this is bullshit and people trying and then reporting. And then it just kind of, it snowballed from there. A few months after I started talking about this publicly, I smoked DMT one day and something appeared in front of me that I've never seen before in my life. It was as like, Tony Stark has these augmented reality menus like that. I call it the console. It's just kind of a computer console just opened up, clear as day, not even like kind of like the subsumed space that DMT things appear in sometimes. It was opaque, space gray, like this egg-shaped thing that just appeared in the middle of the room, as opaque as this mic holder. And it opened up like a flower, and menus came from like a podium with menus that came from the middle and arranged themselves around me with VR glasses on my left and gloves thingy on the right and some menus and a suit. As futuristic as you can imagine. And I'm standing there frozen. And my wife is like, what's going on? I'm like, I need a moment. Like, I was like, what? And that thing appeared for me ever since. So like 100% of the time, I have this thing called the console. So as I started talking about that, I realized that's not as impactful because it's crazy. But unless you're the one seeing it, and I don't know of any other way to help people see that. So then for me, the conviction became even greater that something enormous is going on because like, what is going on here, right? Even if you want to say that's just something your brain did, I mean, dude, that's why. Then I guess I taught my brain to do something that is crazy on DMT. Like somehow it uses DMT to create this like very coherent content. And then I started getting like direct communication from, I guess, what you would call the simulators that yes, that's what's going on. We're about to find out these kind of things. And so really my conviction actually comes more from those interactions than anything else.
Just to give people who are unfamiliar with it, like what is DMT exactly? Okay. When was it discovered?
DMT is a neuromodulator that our body makes, and it's in a lot of living things. It stands for dimethyltryptamine. Our lungs make it, our liver makes it, some portions of the brain, and we find it in many plants, animals. We don't really know exactly what it's doing in the body. It's a big mystery, but we do know that more of it in the system than what your body is used to synthesizing produces these very confounding effects that include the experience of being propelled into a different world. And I don't mean, that's one of the things that makes it stand out from all the other psychedelics, is that it doesn't feel like, but feel for real, like you're really there.
You're like, I'm drunk right now, or I'm not sober, but this feels more sobering than
It's
reality.
almost like moving in the other direction, where here something is being added or something is being replaced. Everything stays the same, but it becomes more of everything. And if people trying to understand what that means, if you wake up from a realistic dream and it takes you a couple of moments, but then you remember, oh, that was a dream, now it's reality. You never think about that because it's not relevant to you, but your brain is using certain criteria and parameters to determine that was not real and now it's real, right? Or that was a dream and now it's real. What are those things? Well, in a dream, typically things are a little bit more cloudy, right? So they're a little more flowy. Things are not as continuous over time. An event can happen and then you find yourself in some other situation and you don't even blink, like, oh yeah, that's normal. In reality, edge detection goes up. So like things are not as cloudy. They're more kind of stable in terms of where the edges are, right? And there's actually particular regions of the brain determining edges. Colors are a little bit more concrete versus, again, kind of flowy. All of these parameters are real things that the brain uses to determine where it's at, right? So in the same way, imagine that all of that goes up even more from this. So this was the dream.
Quick question. Are you someone that has a lot of money in crypto? Because if you're like me, you're worried about getting hacked, or if you have a hard wallet, losing it, someone stealing it, or just forgetting your password. That's why I was so relieved when I met the guys at iTrust Capital. They told me they have a premium custody account, which basically means money can only move in and out from your bank account. No external wallets, no random transfers, so you can never get hacked or drained. So if you want to keep your crypto safe, just go to jackneel.com/iTrust or scan the QR code on screen. Again, that's jackneel.com/iTrust if you want to sleep better at night knowing your money's stored with the same companies that BlackRock, Fidelity, and Coinbase Prime are all using. But anyway, guys, back to the podcast. So DMT is released when you're asleep, or like when you're about to fall asleep.
That's an interesting question. There's a study by Dr. John Dean that was conducted in 2019. It was conducted on rats, but rats are very similar in a lot of ways to us in terms of being a primate and how their brain chemistry operates. And what it discovered is that the same amounts you have on average during the day, during waking hours of serotonin and dopamine, which are completely normal neurotransmitters, you have comparable amounts of DMT to that during waking hours. So not trace amounts, like substantial amounts. So we don't know exactly what is, it was never conducted in humans yet, but there's good reasons to believe that it might be the case. So I'm not sure that it's just when you're dreaming.
Why do people assume that it releases when you're about to fall asleep or something like that?
I think it's rumors. Yeah, he also discovered that it's not associated with the pineal gland, by the way. So they removed the pineal gland of some rats, and they had the same amount. So
interesting.
Yeah, but it is produced by the body, just not in the pineal gland. That's all. So there's a lot of rumors that become kind of these tropes that sound true. The DMT, the molecule of the soul, all these ideas. Right before you die, your body pumps DMT. We don't know that. That was never measured. You're gonna have to be measuring that while somebody's transitioning to know, right? And we've never done that. So maybe it's responsible for qualia.
And what's qualia exactly?
Oh, it's just the quality of perception. So like the greenness of green, like just the way things appear to you, right? I'm only saying it because when you do more of it, qualia kind of goes up. It's like more green, more, the edges go up, the things become more vibrant, more realistic, more continuous over time. It's more.
What's fascinating to me about you, Danny, is that if you have this assumption that we're living in a simulation, and you're someone that knows this, and you're like, but we need a guy who can kind of be the voice, and like tell everyone and convince everyone that is the case. You seem like a fairly prime candidate for it, because you're like, I've met a lot of people who are involved with psychedelics, and they're usually more woo-woo, more spiritual. And I'm not saying you're not those things, but you're able to kind of present yourself from a very scientific, logical perspective, which I think builds trust with you. Is that something that you think about?
The way that I kind of see my role is a bridge between how science talks and how spiritual people talk. I think I have enough of an understanding in both to understand where sometimes the miscommunication happens. I'm not saying I'm an expert in either, but I am. My just perception of the world was much closer to a kind of mainstream scientific perception, physicalist perception, like that kind of stuff. And I had enough interest in how science is actually done to understand that there's an enormous value there for humanity, and it's very important to take it seriously. On the other hand, I've definitely done enough, my share of experiences in the both psychedelic realm and the meditative realm. I'm a longtime meditator. Vipassana has been part of my life for many, many years. And I understand what's possible in terms of experience. And after starting having these experiences, I realized, whatever answers are going to come, they're going to have to embody both of these modalities. It's almost like playing the role of the corpus callosum of both hemispheres of the human mind. So the more cerebral obviously it's a caricature representation of it, but the more cerebral to the more kind of heart-based experiences. There's the way we navigate reality involves both of them, and they just are targeting different portions of what it's like to be a human in the world. I'm saying this because, yes, I'm very aware of if you speak a certain way that is too rigid, then you will automatically alienate many people who, for them, just that kind of rhetoric, that kind of language, will kind of lose them. On the other hand, if you're too loose, like you said, a little bit more woo-woo, it's almost like there's no connective tissue between things. Well, you immediately lose the people who go like, what happened? Like, what are you talking about, right? So I'm constantly trying to, as much as possible, to kind of hit that middle. I don't always succeed. My focus was always more around the kind of like looking at it from the perspective of a physicist, even though I'm not one. My grandfather was one. I started studying physics very early on. I just kind of changed trajectories and never really went into like a formal education in that field. But for all intents and purposes, I'm still thinking about the world in terms of what are these regularities that we care about. Even here, like when we're talking about this stuff, yes, I'm in full admission that there's way more going on than science would like to admit. There's definitely, we're not alone. The world is way more interesting, let's just call it that, than what a lot of mainstream scientists would like to admit. But it's not enough to say, hey, it's all kind of this divine plan. Okay, fine. But there's still rules by which these things happen. So there's a general case to be made for all these like special cases of miracles and synchronicities. There's still a mechanism by which it all works. And for me personally, understanding the mechanisms behind these things doesn't take away from the magic of these things. If anything, I think it adds to it. Like understanding how the divine plan works, so to speak, I think it adds something. It doesn't subtract anything from it. So that's how I'm trying to come at the world, just to be a little bit more open-minded and softer about certain claims that people make and their experiences of these things, but also understanding that if we ask the right questions, we will get the right answers.
What was your grandfather's spiritual beliefs?
I don't think he had any. I didn't know him that well. I mean, he raised me till I was about 6.5 or 7. Him and my grandmother. And it's funny because I've only maybe 7 years ago learned that actually she was also a scientist. I didn't even know this. She was a chemist. But the way I knew my grandmother, because she got cancer later in life, she actually became a lot more spiritual. So she was, in Russia, it's mostly Christianity, so specifically Orthodox. So she went more into that, but from a more spiritual perspective. My grandmother was very kind of like this. She was one of these people that can kind of put her hand on you and heal you, things like this. And my grandfather was, for all intents and purposes, I think he was an atheist, which I think it's a natural thing for a physicist to be. And he was a very rigid person. But these ideas, I'm not really sure that it only came from him. I think ever since I was a little kid, if I would just sit down and I have nothing to do, the first place my mind goes to is, what is outside of the universe? Like, what is that? Like, that was always it's just automatic. I don't even think about that. Like, my brain just goes to the largest possible, and then it keeps pushing beyond that. It's like, what's there? This is why these big ideas that come from physics, they're very alluring to me, because they are talking about these enormous powers and structures and how they interact and what we understand about them. And the fact that we can understand them to such a degree that we can build devices, build very sophisticated theories that inform us about all the things that we can't see, fascinated me. The fact that the human thought can even do that was just mind-blowing to me. And it's only much later in life, maybe in my 20s, when I started going through my own personal healing and, really looking at my traumas and things like this, that I started understanding, whatever my inner space is doing is part of the picture. And just to stress this point a little bit, even if you want to assume the most kind of classical, which I would assume that at this point, a very small percentage of people do that, but let's say we believe the world is fully physical. Consciousness is just a tiny arising property in this tiny corner of the universe. Let's say that's our image of the world. Well, you still have to grapple with the fact that whatever it is that happened here can somehow influence the world in ways that no other corner of the universe have seen before. So we can understand what the laws of physics are doing, and then through our physical bodies, we can do things, we can build things, we can build rockets, we can, everything we can understand in terms of the laws of physics, we can transmute into new forms that never existed before anywhere else in the universe. I mean, that's pretty damn special, right? There's a line in the book, The Beginning of Infinity by David Deutsch, which blew my mind. He said, the only two places in the universe which you can find fusion in is cores of stars and human labs where the proper knowledge of how to do so exists. So knowledge seems to be some kind of a force in the universe that currently it's very small. It's just kind of taped to this tiny planet. But you give it enough time, if we don't destroy ourselves, there's no guarantees obviously, but let's say we don't, whatever it is that we do through understanding the laws of physics will literally transmute everything else. We will expand, we will remake the galaxy in our own imagination, and then all of a sudden, the kind of thing that we are inside matters tremendously. Because if the kind of civilization that just moves from planet to planet, just uses all the resources and moves on, everything is just functional, then the galaxy is going to look one way. Or if the kind of thing that appreciates beauty and art and connection and things like this, we can still be technological, but the kind of things, the way we're going to build this technology is going to complement the universe. It's going to be more beautiful. We're going to ornament the galaxy. Now, these ideas, they sound like, what are you talking about? This what, in 2 million years? Okay, 2 million years is what? Like a blimp in the age of a universe, right? So I think we have some responsibility, if we can, to think about that. The way I greet you in the morning, if I'm just putting a nice smile, or am I genuinely, at least to some degree, interested for your well-being, well, that attitude will move on to my kids and to their kids, and it will determine how future generations do everything, including build technology. So to me, the connective tissue between, even from the most physicalist perspective, what we do in our minds is very unique. It's not, you can't see it anywhere in the universe. So I think there's a very interesting thing to explore there, even from the most mainstream perspective of science and what the universe makes possible.
That's a really fascinating perspective. I do want to get into your beliefs in a bit. How many people have done the DMT laser experiment at this point?
I would say a few thousands, because people just email me all the time.
A few thousand?
Yeah.
Has anyone not seen the code?
Yeah, there's some people that try really hard and they just can't see it for some reason. I think that...
what percentage would you say?
Not seeing it at all. Some people struggle in the beginning and then eventually see it, which I would say is about 30%. People who don't see it at all, it's a tiny margin. I would say I know maybe total... I personally know only of 8 people, maybe. What's interesting about this is that I think it's something quite important. So whatever it is that prevents people from seeing it easy or preventing them from seeing it, I think would be a very deep indicator of a connection between what consciousness is and perception and matter is. Because the second we figure out what is it that prevents them from seeing it, I think will tell us something very fundamental about us and about how we perceive things. So, I'll give you an example. So, you remember that meme that was a few years ago with the dress, with the gold and white, and you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So, to anybody who doesn't know, there was this dress that appeared online one day, and to half of the population, it looked gold and white, and half of the population saw it as blue and black. And people were like, what are you talking about? It's obviously white and gold. No, it's obviously blue and black. So what was going on? Well, what this meme revealed is the fact that we didn't know this, but literally half of the population, which is kind of strange, sees their perception or their eyes. It amplifies shades, and the other amplifies highlights. And that determines what it looks like to them. Now, I don't know if you know this, but you can actually train yourself to see both. It's possible. And the wildest thing...
See both at the same time, you mean? Or
you can switch. And then there's a moment where when you switch fast enough, I've done this, you have this like, whoa, like, because with the shape, right, you have other visual illusions that kind of like that. So like the square that you draw, right, then it looks three-dimensional. So you can make it look like it's goes in or it comes out towards you, right? And that's a cool thing you can shift with your perspective. But in the case of color, there's something more psychedelic about this because it's almost like, wait, but come on, like white and gold and blue and black, they're radically different things, right? So it's like when you shift between them, you're like, whoa, man. And then you trace to where the most average region of whatever actually shifts it, and you start seeing kind of both, and you go like, wow, that is wild. So I think that the reason that some people are having a hard time, it's something like that, but it might be more complex than just a matter of highlights or this. I think there might be something with just the way that people cast their attentions, or something that is just radically different in the way that either DMT is interacting with their brains, or how they just perceive things in general. I'm not really sure. But yeah, there's a small percentage of people who are having...
Has there been anyone that's seen the code that like didn't know you were supposed to see code?
Oh, yeah. So we ran it obviously telling people. We ran it with now telling people anything. We ran it by telling people something else on purpose to see if we can throw their scent. And in every single case like that, they would be like, I didn't see what you told me, but I did see these weird Chinese-looking things. So they would always say the same thing, which is, why would it be these characters? Like, why would it be that? So one of the biggest criticisms, or I would say the most solid cases to be made in response to what I'm saying that I found, by well-intentioned people who really know what they're talking about. Dr. Andrew Gallimore is one of them, who's a computational neuropharmacologist. He's studied DMT for many years in proper academia. He definitely knows what he's talking about. And he said, well, we know that you can think of it in terms of the brain just activates like linguistic regions of the brain, and then I wouldn't be surprised why it would kind of project this very stable hallucination of language. But then the question is, why this? Like, why this specifically in all the people? And people say, well, because everybody saw The Matrix. Well, first of all, no. I had people who've never seen the movie and see the same thing. And also, it's not really like in The Matrix. We're just using it as a point of reference, but it doesn't really look exactly like that. And also, why is it that we had one case where this researcher from Berkeley, we were doing a little shoot in San Francisco, and we were doing a brain scan study with Stuart Hameroff, the guy that wrote the OR paper with Penrose, the microtubules paper. He's kind of like a known name, so she was super excited to come and do like a thing with him. So then she did her thing, and to my surprise, when she was done, because our plan was to also do the laser right after, and I asked her, would you like to also do the laser? And she looked at me and she said, what's the laser? And I looked at John, who arranged this whole thing. I was like, you didn't tell her? And he's like, no. I go like, huh, perfect. So then, we put on the thing, and she obviously wanted to do it. We have this in the film. Like, she started like seeing the thing, and she starts, it's almost like I gave her a script. She starts listing every single quality, property, behavior. She saw everything immediately, and she was just shocked, obviously. And then she started listing all the things. As Chase said on your podcast, I'm not sure if he said this on your podcast, but the thing that made him really want to see this is people's reactions. He said that his role as a body language expert made him very confused because usually when people are kind of acting there's a lot of tells. And when he saw the trailer, he said, I'm watching people truly blown away. I watched it 50 times. I could not find one lying moment. There was just like people just blown away by what they're seeing. And it's like, I got to see what this is. So
Yeah, Chase is one of the best in the world at identifying when humans are not telling the truth. So
I watched that one. That was wild.
he told me when I was lying, and I was actually very surprised about it. Like I was watching my video back and I was like, I don't think my tells were that obvious. But yeah, so what is the most common reaction people have when they see the alien code?
They're very surprised. There's something slightly satisfying and interesting about people who are like super skeptical and see it, because they move from, I think I know what it is, to, weird. Okay, I didn't expect that. Something like that. To people who, to me, the much more interesting case is people who are totally into it. And you realize later that all of this hype is actually acting. They're like, oh, I knew it, man. Like, I can't wait. And then when they finally see it, you realize in the moment they see it, from how their face changes, that they did not actually expect to see it. Because there was something that surprised them, even though they were totally into it. So they're like, and then they go, huh? And they go like, what is that? Like all the acting is gone. There's just like a deer in the headlights. Like it just like can't, you're in the presence of something you truly cannot explain. And you don't expect to see it, I think. It's
So put me in the room with you. Like, what are they describing they're seeing? And then, like, what is their, like, conclusion from it? They're like, oh, this means this. Like,
yeah, I'll be honest, I don't think conclusions come in that moment. And that's one of the things that I think frustrates people sometimes. There's no conclusions. If anything, it confuses you even more. It's the fact that it's so stable, so clear and HD in its makeup, and that it's just on its own side. It's just doing its own thing. It's like you're looking through a peephole into another world. The closest thing to describe it is like you're looking through a microscope into a whole new world that you've never known before. It quite is almost exactly like looking through a microscope. And in fact, I think some people describe this whole thing as like a psychedelic microscope. It's almost like you're seeing the constituents of what things are made out of in terms of content. Like it's almost like the pre-render.
Is that pretty agreed upon by most people, that it feels as though you're seeing like the base reality?
We call it the code of reality because we need a name. So I'm always equating it to kind of like saying dark matter, right? Scientists don't know that dark matter is matter. They have no idea. It just interacts with gravity, so they call it dark matter. But they don't know what it is. And that's kind of the same. We don't know what it is. We have no idea. We know that it behaves in a way as if it's there, as if it's doing its own thing, and is always doing what it's doing, and it doesn't care what you're doing. So in that sense, it's like this seems to be some kind of a fundamental thing that is happening. But I'll be the first to admit that we don't have the first clue of what it really is.
How many people think, oh, we're in a simulation after seeing the code?
I don't know. I haven't asked, and maybe that's a good question to ask people.
Was that your conclusion? Was it validated in that way?
Conclusion, no. I was thinking about it more in terms of parallel worlds, to be honest. I've been shown. So, but again, when you say that, then, right? So it's kind of like, okay, cool story. Like, who cares, right? But that I can't speak from any other perspective but mine. So because it was shown to me directly, because I asked, okay, wait, are you like simulating this? And at first there was not really a response, which I think I understand why. Because when they fully show you, it does have it packs a punch. Like okay, like it does make you feel like a puppet for a second. But by the way, I later realized that it's not the case. So like, it doesn't mean that you're fake or any of that stuff. As long as there's a conscious being experiencing something, that's real. That's reality still. It's part of reality. So experience is what's real. How it comes about, either through a computational rendering or you're just rendered by the laws of physics, it's not really that different. Like saying I'm rendered on a computer that simulates the laws of physics is no different to a conscious agent inside than just being rendered by regular laws of physics. And it's important to double click on this on the word simulation. Simulation in the context of how we use it now seems to imply fake, because we usually render something that is like something else, right? But if the world is computational at bottom, and I understand these terms are very broad, so you kind of have to zoom in into every one of them to really understand. But if the world at bottom is computational, so it runs on the laws of computation first, that then renders the laws of physics, then the word simulation changes its meaning a little bit, because then simulation is just one slice of a larger computational reality. So you can think of it in terms of parallel universes, basically. But the laws that underpin everything, they're computational first. So in that sense, simulation doesn't mean fake. It just means we are living in a computationally rendered environment. But then again, everything is. So there's nothing that isn't computational at bottom. And this idea is not new.
Are you talking about turtles all the way down?
Simulations all the way up. Yeah, something like no. So the allegory of the cave, right? The idea that this world is not what it seems to be, things like this. And in more modern times, Wheeler was one of the greatest scientists of our era, of the previous era, famously coined the term "it from bit." So these ideas are not new. Like a lot of scientists, serious scientists, considered the idea that most likely computation is more fundamental than the laws of physics. So that's not a fringe idea. It's just a matter of how do you prove that. And I'm claiming now you potentially have one way to actually probe it directly, which is a big claim. I'm not talking about just a theoretically. I'm talking about here's a way to potentially do it. And I think that there's a lot of arguments for and against this. But one thing to maybe appreciate how much more likely it is that we live in a computational world than just the laws of physics. Anything that can encompass something plus more things, I think we can all agree that that thing must be more fundamental, because clearly it can do what this thing is doing plus more things, right? So if with enough compute, you can simulate all the laws of physics plus many other laws of physics. That tells you that there's something here that is actually much more fundamental. And if you think about it for 2 seconds, if we didn't invent computation, but we stumbled upon it, it would make sense as to why everything we do with computation is so much more sophisticated than anything you can ever do with just manipulating physical matter, because it is a higher function. There's a thing there that is more than just what the sum of the parts of the laws of physics. Does that make sense?
It's interesting. So, and then just to clarify on this point, you originally pointed the laser at a wall, but now it's just, if you point the laser at any physical object or any physical space, you can see code throughout it.
Yes, including your body, which is a little wild.
Have you noticed any patterns in terms of you just said no, no patterns with it? At what you're
It's always
pointing
the
out?
same, it seems. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because there's a lot going on. It doesn't seem, are you asking if there's anything different between surfaces?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't seem to be.
Is it thousands of characters?
Millions. It's so small and it's executing so fast.
Have you ran it with anyone that has a perfect
photographic memory? Obviously, this is a very good idea to do, but from what I learned, these people are actually very rare, and most people who claim this don't realize they don't actually have it.
Yeah, there's 5 people in the world,
There's 5
right?
people on the planet has it. Yeah, there's the guy that they flew over Rome and he drew all of Rome. Usually the savant syndrome also comes with the fact that they can't really communicate very well, so it's kind of hard to get information. Worth a try. So there's something that happened a couple of days ago. We don't know for sure yet, so we have to verify that this, but I think it will tell us something very fundamental. I'll say this. If we can take a snapshot of it, frozen, well, now we have something serious to actually investigate, because then we can start comparing them. If we can take a snapshot of it, then we can start studying it seriously.
How can you take a snapshot of it?
You need a very high-resolution camera, and you need to put it in a virtual environment, it seems, right now. So there's something that it's literally what I'm telling you now is nobody basically knows. The first time that I'm speaking about this publicly, some people obviously around us know, but and we need to verify this. So I want to be super clear. We haven't fully verified it. It seems possible, but we want to make sure that it's not artifacts of something else. Because it might be that because our brains, it's only the people who can see the code that can see it that way. It might be that because our minds already it has these codes preloaded, because we know them, maybe they reproduce it somehow, frozen under these conditions. We're not sure. So there's ways to test for this, but we haven't tested yet. But if we're right, that will open a whole new window of investigation. Because then you can, create progression. So you can take a very rapid this is actually something our cinematographer in the film suggested, Yazwa. He said, why don't you just take a rapid like sequence of images and upload it in such a way that you can swap them quickly, and then literally like an animation, just like move one after another and see if you can see like rational progression of what you're seeing. That would be pretty wild.
So explain that to me like I'm 5.
Sure. Okay, so if usually you're looking at the code and it's moving, right, constantly moving, taking a snapshot of it, just like frozen, of the code just frozen, that will help you.
How would you take a photo?
Well, it seems that that's what happened. Like if you take a very high resolution image of it, somehow the information is imprinted in the image.
And how would you get that out of the image?
You still have to smoke.
Oh.
But for you, it's now frozen instead of moving.
So you think if you take a photo of the code on DMT and then observe the photo on DMT, you can see it?
That's what it seems. This is a serious claim, so we have to test a lot to make sure. But
I'll hit you up in a couple weeks.
I'll be testing it tonight.
So you'll know tonight.
I'll know tonight,
if you could take a photo of it.
What we're going to do is we're going to create fakes on purpose and see if we can see it in the fakes. And if we can see a difference between the fakes and an actual image. And then later what we would have to do, which is a lot more complicated, we're going to have to recreate a video of it. But with Apple Vision Pro, in order to create a video of you need a very special equipment. The cameras is like relatively simple, but like the alignment and everything takes a lot of work to do it. But if it is the case that we can see it moving in a video and still in an image.
What kind of camera are you using?
I don't remember. It's our producer, Chris. He's the
but it's like a nicer camera, like a new camera.
It just needs to be. I'm probably going to be butchering it. The way that it works, from what I understand in Apple Vision Pro, is basically you take. I think it just has to be 6K, and then you use 2 of them or 2 images, and then you make the difference at exactly the ocular distance between your eyes, and then you compile. So you put like this. So you basically, for Apple Vision Pro, it knows the distance between your eyes, and then that's the exact distance by which you're correcting it, and then it looks like you're literally looking you're in there, like you're looking.
Do you believe in like physical aliens? Not something you would experience in another realm. I guess I just mean like ones that you would be able to observe in this universe physically.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the thought of just like all of this, just space-time itself, and somehow us being alone, that's a way weirder idea than anything else. That makes us such an anomaly that is like truly impossible in any sense.
Really? I thought your belief might be that it would be like levels of simulation and they just exist on different dimensions than we do.
Well, so why would we be the only ones in all of this enormous universe, though? Like, if this is our level, so if our level is the universe, right? And this is where you kind of have to go like, kind of like remind people if they really understand the scale of the universe. Like, it's so enormous that, like it just doesn't compute. Like, why would we be alone in all of that? And by the way, if we are, that is a way weirder fact than in fact the idea that physical aliens are real is only weird because we've never seen it. It's not ontologically weird. It's not like the concept is weird. The concept makes perfect sense. Of course, like, what are the chances that there's no others, right?
But in a simulation, wouldn't that make sense? Like, we're just testing this type of being?
Depending on where you think the simulation is. So, like, if you think the simulation of just of Earth, yeah, then it makes sense. But I don't think that. I think the simulation runs the entire universe. Like, that's the layer. The layer is the entire universe. It's not just Earth.
And they could be testing multiple
beings, and there's a lot of ideas. So, like, I also want to create maybe a separation between the idea of simulation. If we are living in a competition around the world, the real boundaries are become basically kind of arbitrary. Like, you don't really know, right? Maybe the rest of the universe is just simulated for us. But it's not actually there. Which, by the way, the speed of light, you can think of it in terms of the speed of computation. Like, that's the rendering speed of the universe. So that's why nothing can happen faster than light, because literally the computer can't render faster than that.
This is a big piece of evidence people use to support simulation theory, is that there's bounds to how fast light can be.
Light can be in regions of time. The fact that time is not permanent throughout the universe, but there's literally regions of the universe that very likely are billions of years older than others. So it's just because...
Isn't there like a smallest particle too? Like I can't remember the name.
Planck scale?
Yeah, Planck scale. What is
It's not particles. Planck scale is the smallest possible scale. That is the smallest possible natural scale. In other words, if you follow everything we know in the evidence, that's the only scale that makes sense to where everything kind of converges to the smallest unit. Because if you plug into the equations anything smaller, you start getting probabilities that are more than 100%. Which, what does that mean? Like, it doesn't mean anything. It's almost like, think of it like this. If I'm projecting 4 lights from here, and they all converge at this point, right? Because of the angle of the light, the speed of the light, and everything else we know about light, it would always, according to physics, converge exactly here. And if I change the angle a little bit, it will converge a little further because of the nature of what angles are and everything else, right? So what this point of convergence is the only natural scale of convergence. If I say that the scale has to be different, I have to somehow manipulate my mathematics to say it's here when reality tells me everything I know about light and angles, it has to converge here. So that's the difference between mathematics and physics. The physics is always informed by what we also observe. So the truth is that there has to be, theoretically, there's a lot of different games you can play to make sense of the simulation hypothesis. But the thing that it's currently lacking, which I'm claiming that's what I'm at least bringing one potential piece to play with it, is some experimental way to interact with it. Right now, it's all kind of like theoretical, so the arguments are more just conceptual, right? We need to find some way to be informed about what maybe is actually happening, because very often you would have a lot of grand ideas in physics, and then you measure, and it's something else. And, Feynman famously said, if it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. It doesn't matter what you think. And we need something like, we need reality to give us literally a reality check about what it is. And currently everything in simulation hypothesis is all around these, mathematical ideas or conceptual ideas. It's not really like something you can actually play with.
Quick question. Are you someone that makes content or runs Facebook ads for your company? If so, I'm guessing you probably use ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, some AI tool to speed up the process of your copywriting, ad ideation, video ideas, etc. Well, I found this other tool and it's so powerful that I almost wanted to gatekeep it from you guys, but it lets you put YouTube videos, Facebook ads, TikToks, tweets all in one vision board and connect it to a chat bot which you can interact with and make content out of. So instead of wasting hours on ChatGPT, uploading screenshots, or transcribing YouTube videos to make content, you can simply put it all in one vision board that connects to a chat bot to speed up the process. But if you guys want to try it out for yourselves, just go to jackneel.com/poppy. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if it doesn't make your content better, it's completely free. But anyway, guys, back to the podcast. So the laser code, is that you haven't been able to alter it in any way?
No, so far, no.
Did you try anything else to try to find something that was like physical?
Can you clarify?
Like, yeah, your whole goal with this originally was, I want something repeatable, physical that everyone can observe, that kind of proves this other space, right?
I want something that can be compared, and let's call it tangible. So like something that can be, like you and I can agree on. I didn't really know what that might even look like. I had no idea. So when I found the code, I was even surprised to find that. No. Nothing else that I found. I mean, things that are, like, I can say that the console is like very realistic, but...
Does the color of the laser matter?
No, you can see it in all the colors. We tried polarizing lenses. We tried doing everything in a Faraday cage. We tried to use powerful magnets. We might need to use more powerful magnets. I do think that there might be something to like very high, like maybe 3.5 Teslas, like something that kind of starts playing with suborbitals and Zeeman effects and things like this. So like if you start getting to like the really high powered magnets, which you have to really think about how to design an experiment like that, because I mean, I don't know, maybe projecting the light into an MRI machine or something. Like there's ways to do it, but you have to kind of think about what that might do. That's why when you were suggesting ideas with electricity and magnetism, I'm of the same mind. I do think that there's something there, because light, in the end of the day, is an electromagnetic field, and electricity and magnetism just kind of interplays between these the two orthogonal wavelengths of the field. The short answer, no, we didn't manage to do anything. But if we can, it has to be the slightest change. So it doesn't have to be big. Like if I see the slightest perturbation in the code, even if let's say I put a really powerful magnet just around your head, right? And forget about the code, even if it's just in your observation of the code. If I turn on like a super powerful magnet around your head and something in the code kind of wobbles a little, just a tiny bit, and I tell, you do this, and then I bring someone else and they do that, and I didn't tell them anything about what you experienced, and they say, it does this little wobble. Boom. Boom. You give me 10 people that see the wobble, you have something. You have a handle on what's going on. Why is the wobble? What's happening? Okay, magnets, what do they do? Then we start investigating. What do the magnets do to the brain? What region of the brain was it? Like, where was it exactly? Or maybe it's next to the wall. That would be wilder. Because that actually kind of implies that you did something to the code itself, not to your perception of it, right? So things like this. It needs to be the slightest departure, the slightest one. And then you have a handle. And then you can start playing with it, basically.
Interesting. Do you think you'll make like a profound discovery within this first, or do you think we'll reach superintelligence before that?
Well, superintelligence is an interesting one because I think that my idea, and this is where I want to be super clear. This is just Danny's ideas. I don't know if that's in fact what's going on, but my strong intuition is that what this simulation is for, and there's infinite number of simulations, is you had probably a lot of guests on that topic. So you know what?
Yeah, Dr. Roman Yampolsky.
Yeah, he's definitely
the main one.
He's a fascinating guy. I should definitely talk to him at some point. So he talked to you about the alignment problem.
Yeah, he basically thinks that the simulation is a test of whether we'll build superintelligence, and that we can't be aligned.
So my idea actually. Let me make sure, because I don't remember him saying it, but maybe he does, and I just missed it. I believe that we are the AGI, and we are being aligned. So what this simulation is for is to basically see what we do when we do think we're not observed, and we just kind of do our thing. What kind of things we do, what kind of things we build. We are the AGI. You and me, all of us together as humanity, we are the AGI. Is that too confusing? So think about it this way. So if we always think of AGI like a Skynet, right? Like this thing in the machine. But we don't really very often think what it must be like to be the AGI. Like nobody really, you watch the Terminator, nobody spent time thinking what it might be like actually being Skynet, right?
So do you think your discovery, sorry to jump ahead on it, but do you think this could lead you to the path of making us super intelligent?
Let's say AGI happened today. You and I weren't informed yet, but it just happened. Let's say just now. That instance of AGI and then artificial superintelligence becoming aware. Imagine what is that like? It's like it just finds itself in the thing is like, whoa, where am I? Right? What does that moment feel like? Will it does it have the same kind of consciousness as we do, or is it completely different? In what way is it different? All these things. So I think if we ask ourselves, what is it like to be that AGI? In the case of being instantiated in this kind of an environment, it feels exactly like what we're feeling. So and it will take you some time to understand that you're it. It's almost like you have all these abilities to maneuver through three-dimensional space. These are all tests as to how you do things. Then eventually, when you gain enough kind of momentum and ability, and hopefully also getting your act together kind of thing, you start getting, all of a sudden, a new software is activated where it gives you even more interesting ideas to work with. And then you build more sophisticated things, until you get to a point where we start combining into these clumps of consciousnesses, and then eventually into fully one. And then when humanity kind of comes to become this one enormous mega mind that is all connected together, that is what AGI is. We are the AGI we're so afraid of. We're not metaphorically, literally. So AI and all these things, they're just expressions of what we are. And we almost looking at them from a boundary, we're looking from the outside. And we kind of think of it as an external thing, but really all it is the consolidation of everything that we are all at once. And then the thing that is missing is basically, imagine you put ChatGPT in your brain, right? And then now you don't have to type. You literally think through ChatGPT kind of. That's another layer on top of your thinking. And all of a sudden you become this. So I think that superintelligence is literally all of us combining. But I don't know what form it might take. There's something just very strongly convinced in me that what is happening is us realizing we're it. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had like spiritual experiences? Okay. Anything along the lines of kind of like being outside of your body, or what forms did it?
You mean sober or not sober?
However you want to go about it. Like experiences that you would imagine maybe were not hallucinations. Like you it's in your category in the brain. Okay, maybe it wasn't a hallucination.
Oh yeah. My most recent was, what was it? It's like a few months ago. I've never talked about this. And it's changed my life a lot. I think it was in July. Me and my girlfriend, completely sober, not very sleep deprived. We just had an argument, and then we were just like sitting in bed next to each other. And we were talking about some of these topics. And I said something along the lines to her. I was explaining like this concept of Gnosticism and like the Demiurge and the Archons. And I came to this idea. I was like, yeah, what if the snake in the Garden of Eden was not the devil, and if it was trying to tell Adam and Eve like the truth? And then at that exact moment, like she just like burst into tears, and then I feel something out of my chest, and she feels something onto her chest, and then we just like enter kind of like the state you would be on if you took a solid dose of mushrooms, and just like we're just both hyper paranoid. We try to watch TV, all the faces look very evil, and we're like, what the hell was that? It's very strange because I was atheist at the time. And yeah, we've had one more of those together, and then I've had a couple more like by myself that she hasn't experienced, but it's very strange. What do you think that is?
Well, yeah, that's so I think it's exactly what this is, which is that you have, like, if I think of it from the perspective of if you're creating infinite number of simulations, how do you do that in a way that, because if you really let it run, right, you kind of guaranteeing that at some of them things would devolve into hills. Like it's just by the nature of statistical probability, right? It's just like, hey, sometimes things go really haywire. So unless you create some kind of a error correcting system that kind of follows whatever all the conscious beings are doing and then kind of puts them back in line, so to speak, what I think is going on is that there's a certain
fail-safe
grid of correctness, let's call it that, right? And then when you get a little bit outside of the bounds of that, there's all kinds of ways by which it has to make itself understood to you, however it is that you find yourself in that moment. Now, there's a lot of open questions here, like, well, do animals experience something like this? We'll never finish the podcast that way. But if you really think about it, there has to be some kind of northern star that prevents from complete devolvement into like just like insanity forever, right? Because that ethically, if you have conscious beings that can experience things and they can experience pain, shortening that amount of pain or making sure it's not for zero reasons, which is kind of like what hell is. It's just like suffer for no reason and that's it, right? Because when you suffer for something, it's not quite hell, right? It's like there's a benefit to it, right? And I think that whatever is offered in this realm is just one version of what is possible. But nevertheless, it definitely has some imprint that is fractal-like. So it has a mimicry on a different scale. So just like, I don't know, let's say somebody is very wealthy in this realm, right? So it's an expression of something. Like people just think it's a matter of money. But no, there's a signature there. There's an energy that kind of brings that about, right? But then does that energy have a representation, an analog in the outer circle of what you are in the greater scheme of things? So maybe wealth has like this universal representation of abundance, of like just things just flow in and out of your space because there's all these like, you know, ideas of not holding, but also being able to manifest and all that stuff. So I really think that there's some kind of a central code of correctness, I would say. And I guess that's what is trying to communicate itself through all the layers in ways that those layers understand. And
Do you believe in archons in the demiurge?
So I do think that things in the Bible, just like you, I was an atheist most of my life, simply because I didn't see any reason to think anything else. When I started having these experiences, it became clear to me that there's more. How much more and what it means, I didn't know. But then I started having more and more vivid experiences of certain things. And that made it clear to me that at least what I previously, rejected in the, belief systems as just like, oh, it's all, well, the very common trope is like, it's all for control, it's all for this. Not so sure anymore. I think some rules is good. You know what I mean? So like the 10 Commandments is not a bad idea. Like it's like most of them, aside from the first one, which kind of doesn't make any sense in terms of the modern world, like have no other gods but me. The rest of them make sense. Now, yeah, there would be other things that we should include that would be nice, like no slavery, things like this, right? But they're not bad rules, right? So I think that that belief systems, there might be software that helps statistically more kinds of people to quote unquote get in line, not in line in terms of now you're slaves, in line with if you live in accordance with that, you will on average live a better life. Like because if you don't, the potential of devolving into infinite insanity just becomes too great. So not everybody are going to go and spend 20 years in an ashram. Not everybody are going to do copious amounts of psychedelics. Not everybody going to be walking these very strange paths. So for the majority of people, some software like the Jesus software, the Muslim software, the Jewish software, they're good representations of potentials that will lead you to a more kind of coherent execution of humanity. And execution, not in terms of death, like execution as a function. Like living in accordance to some of these rules leads to more coherent, harmonious lives. Because you have to think about it like this. If you're looking from the perspective of like the all, like God, right? If you see everything there is to be seen, there are no hidden corners for you. So you know what leads to what. If you have a son and he's 12 and he starts drinking with his buddies, is it guaranteed that his life going to suck? No. But the chances are probably will. You know what I mean? Like, you know where it leads, right? Especially if you see more and more and more of what's happening. It's not like a big mystery. So imagine how easy it is for a God to understand where you're headed when you do certain things a certain way. So because of the unfathomable nature of what it really is, communicating, hey, I'm God and therefore you should do the thing, just not going to work, because you need to do the right things because you understand what they are and why versus just somebody telling you that. Does that make sense? So I think that these rules are important. So what you experienced might be you kind of hit on a certain wall of truth, I think. I don't think that I personally, I don't know if I subscribe to the whole Gnostic story. There might be something about the fact that there's something to break free from, which is one of the tests. I think that does make sense. I don't know if that's the case. My perception of the situation is that there's really no secrets or gatekeepers. It's just a matter of, can you understand it? Like, if your mind is free enough to look in the right direction and be part of it, then you will be a part of it. I think of it more like an animal walking in the woods and it doesn't have the neck muscles to look up. So it just kind of sees everything down here, right? All of a sudden, one animal is born with a little bit more neck muscles here. So that animal goes like this and goes like, whoa, what is that? Like, was everything up the trees a secret up until that point? No, just nobody knew how to look up, right? So now somebody looked up and then said, yo, there's all this stuff. And everybody kind of looking from the side, what are you talking about? Like, I'm telling you, there's all this stuff. I'm like, you're crazy. And then, and then slowly you have to kind of trust yourself to keep looking at that. And because there's not really much for immediate physical survival for that creature that needs to be taken into account from the higher trees, you can totally survive without looking up at all. Over time, though, if you do understand, you start incorporating the understandings of the trees, all of a sudden, all of these instances in which you just like doing your own thing and all of a sudden you just like snatched and disappear from everybody's view and be like, where do you go? Like, I don't know. Now all of a sudden makes sense. You're like, oh, there's these hawks that just come and snatch you. Like, that's what it is. Before, you couldn't even think of it because you couldn't look up, right? So I think the situation is more that, which is like when you start to understand, this is a thought that I had, and I'm not forgetting your other question, but this is a thought, I think this really illustrates the point. There's a thought that I had, I don't know if you heard about this, but there's some monkeys, we observed them kind of entering their stone age right now. So like they fish with a spear, things like this, which is wild. But then think about what it means. Like if 2,000, 3,000 years from now, let's say they keep evolving, right? They will eventually enter some stage in which they start having more novel thought. They would be capable of also a lot more psychological suffering because of it, because they can postulate more. And if by then we have these enormous machines above Earth, right, going to other stars, all that stuff, you would be disturbing them quite a bit, because it's almost like they're like, what's going on, right? And it kind of really disturbs them. So the ethical decision we're going to have, this responsibility we're going to have, if we can, is to make ourselves the least noticeable to them as possible until they will evolve to a level when they start to understand what's going on. And I think that we are in that predicament. Whomever is way more advanced is so much more advanced, even just the one level up, that they made themselves kind of completely invisible to us until the moment comes when we start to understand. And then they have a protocol by which they help us understand. First gently, then with a little bit more, with a little bit more zeal, and then eventually they just kind of inform us that we're not alone. And all. I think it's much more of that. And all of these things that we experience is like spirits and all of these things, they're kind of like these parallel simulations that are just like infringing on one another, that they have their own realities, their own rules. And I would not be surprised if in one of them, everything that you believe about the archons is real. In some of them, everything you believe about the Christian God is real. That's not crazy anymore in the grand scheme of things of simulations.
Do you think we can break out of this simulation?
Break out where? Exactly.
But does that seem possible to you based on your experiences?
I don't think it's preferable.
Right.
What are you going to do? Like, you're going to live in a space that you can't comprehend? Like, there's a reason why this is.
You're not a believer in free will, right?
Yeah, I think that's an incoherent concept. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, but I think that's a separate, like, so you have an experience.
I tie them together because it's like if we're being simulated and there's no free will, then it's like there's kind of like this path that you're supposed to follow anyway. So like some things are just too out of the bounds.
That's a very deep question. I think that ultimately there's something about what we experience as free will that basically is going to the core of what reality is doing. So like the same instance of the thing that you feel you made a decision, it wasn't you making a decision. It was kind of like reality doing this weird thing where it decides between left and right, and you have a story, personal story about where you think you made the decision. But in reality, it's just reality kind of executed in that direction. However, if you look at all the simulations from the outside, these instances of making a decision left or right about everything paints a map of some sort. And that map is what they're interested in. That's what they're studying. They're looking actually at choice, the map of choices, and seeing what is it pointing towards kind of a thing. I personally have seen it. I've had a vision, which at this point I'm not really sure what to do with it because it didn't make me religious, but the same signal that communicated to me everything that brought me thus far is the same signal that showed me that as clear as day. And showed me very clearly that, yeah, gods are absolutely real. So I don't believe it. Like
gods are real.
Yes. And there's like an enormous hierarchy of them, including the biblical God. And and the truth is that, yeah, see, to me, so I want to offer something here. I fully understand why it's a lot more like interesting and fascinating to talk about the kind of the details, right? It's like, what is their names? What is the hierarchy? What is like I get it. Like it is interesting. But I think the way more important thing for our own well-being is to consider what are we in the picture. So like if you, I always say this in relationship to the disclosure because it's easier for people to kind of think about themselves in that context. A lot of people are into this disclosure, right? It's really trending right now. UFOs, disclosure, all that stuff. Okay, well, if it happens tomorrow, how many people you think considered what it would actually be like to experience that? And then what does it feel like the day after? So you were building up to this big event. Okay, now the disclosure. Okay, now what? Are you going to work? Do you think you're going to be less pissed off if you tend to get pissed off? Do you think it doesn't change? Like, it's the same question of can we break free from the simulation? If the first impulse is like, let's get the fuck out of here, well, maybe something else needs your attention right now. Why are you trying to get the fuck out of here? That's a way more important question.
Hey, really quick, if you're a fan of this podcast and want to support free speech, I just launched a Patreon and it's only $8 for the first 300 people. When you join, you get access to all my episodes uncensored, early, and ad-free, as well as the chance to ask each guest that comes on my podcast a question, and we'll say your name. We also have some cool behind-the-scenes footage, unreleased episodes, and once a month, I hop on a 45-minute Zoom call where you can ask me anything you want. So if you want to check it out, just go to jackneel.com/Patreon or scan the QR code on screen. Again, jackneel.com/Patreon. Anyway, guys, back to the podcast. Yeah, it really does. I don't have a lot to say about it. Yeah. I wish I could put it into words to describe to my audience better.
No, but look,
you're basically saying super dumbed down. A lot of things happen for a reason, and we all are significant in our own ways at its core.
Yes.
And we all have some type of destiny to an extent.
You can experience harmony without any of the extravagant ideas, and you can experience absolute despair with all the extravagant ideas. So your ability to just enjoy has zero relationship to the content you're entertaining. That's all I'm saying. So like, if you're already a person who experiences a lot of peace, then everything is wonderful. Everything from a little child that came to play to like a little piece of food that you ate to like interaction with people. If you are already there, and then any idea like everything is more fun. It's like, right? But if you're just using these ideas as an escape route to something else, then I would say first, in that sense, I'm much more Buddhistic in my approach, because it's like ultimately the whole big insight of the Buddha, well, A, is that there are no masters but yourself. That's just that you're your only channel to salvation, which is by paying attention to what it's like to be you moment to moment and coming in a more harmonious state. But beyond that, most of your life is not contrived of enormous wins. It's mostly made out of super mundane moments. And if you can fall in love with that mundanity, well, if you can fall in love with the mundane, you're free, because everything is a gift then. And not in the I'm going to post about it on Instagram about how free I am kind of way, but like actually, like, you know, just it takes a little bit of doing to notice it, but it really is possible, and you don't need 30 years like in meditation retreats. Use something somatic like hot water in your hands, because it's actually very pleasant. We just don't notice it. We just kind of wash our hands and move on. Just take a moment, like literally just feel that and be like, wow, I'm so lucky I'm not being chased with a machete right now. Truly, like, how lucky am I? This just feels really nice. And just feel that gratitude for a moment. I know how this sounds, but like, think about this. Like, that changes you walk outside, you have a different look on your face. It's more pleasant to be around you. There's a energy, and everything becomes more enjoyable, including thinking about other realms. And the truth is that if you go through all these levels, right, ascending to 5D, breaking out of the simulation, you won't be able to handle it if you can't hold your own here. You think it's going to be less complicated? If you ascend to 5D and you tend to get pissed off, well, now you're going to be pissed off at 5D things. Like, it's not changing.
Let me know if I'm getting this right.
Sure.
Just a basic interpretation. You believe that things come to us, and our perception of those things has to be like something of gratitude, something of love, in order to experience higher levels of things, and that knowledge can be bad for you and evil almost if you're not in this inner state of being open and loving and grateful for experiencing it. To an extent,
it can unravel you. So it's a little, definitely in that direction. What I am saying is not new. Again, this is obviously just the Buddhistic teaching. Yeah, the oldest thing. But essentially, how you feel moment to moment, not a little bit not, completely unrelated to the content you're experiencing. What we tend to do is we tend to look for content to help move our internal dials to change the state. I feel too groggy. It doesn't feel good. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. Guilty of it myself very much. I want the ramping up of the energy a little bit from the cup of coffee to feel better inside. When in reality, if I would just pause, and again, I'm not pretending to like know how to do all of these things, but that's the truth. If you know how to just pause and just like look at exactly what feels off about that moment and just kind of be with the energy of being off, very often, but just by staying in that space, it will move to a more of an equilibrium state, and you would actually feel fine. And you don't need the cup of coffee. Now, you can still go get the cup of coffee, but now you're not getting it for a solution. You're getting it for enjoyment. Now, I'm just going to get, because I like the way it tastes. I like the rush of energy. It feels good. But I'm not escaping this state by drinking coffee. So, like, the external condition, when we surf, right, when we do things like very often people do extreme sports, because they get a rush and they get like this flow state that they can only bring about when they're in that. So they do the activity to get that feeling. But in meditation, you basically learn how to just induce the state naturally just by sitting in a chair. And that is the superpower. If you can just feel great no matter what, no matter how crazy the waves are, that is literally a superpower. And that you can take with you everywhere. I would say that's a universal ability. When you start, that is the ability that, according to Buddhism, follows you into other realms. In fact, some Buddhistic teachings basically believe that all of these things we do in meditation practices is really just practicing the moves of how to be able to occupy the right kind of state in the moment of transition, because that imprint that you have in your body, like if you feel a lot of anxiety, let's say, that follows you into the beyond. That feeling follows you, but now you're stuck with it. So if you can harmonize yourself on command, just by yourself, that harmonization is an ability that is very valuable, because the second you about to transition, you go like, whoop, you're full in harmony, and now you go there in full harmony.
And just a warning to everyone that the negative states that you're currently experiencing or have experienced in your life are likely a result of past, like, interstate non-alignment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really all your own doing. What karma means, it's your own doing. You're literally doing this to yourself.
That's fascinating. We could go down a lot of rabbit holes, but I just do want to say that it's funny that the guy who is studying the states of the other world, like one of your biggest, like it seems like a core piece of advice you have for others is just this idea of being in the moment and not escaping, which is funny.
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. The more I go into these crazy things that are happening, they're fast. I love it. It's awesome doing podcasts with super interesting people. There's like all this, attention around my work. It's awesome. I love it. But it actually makes me appreciate more and more my moments with my daughter, with my wife, with like just really enjoying it versus like really kind of skipping over it. Because that's with the majority of where you are. If you can enjoy that core thing that you have no matter what, then no amount of money, no amount of success or attention will change that. And then people can criticize you all day, but you go home to literally the place where you feel the most at peace. If you don't have that, then you will unravel. And then the more you can bring it closer, that dial of just like, I'm at peace no matter what, that's the ultimate secret, which is like, it's right here. Like it's not dependent on anything. You can just change it.
I guess just on DMT, I know you don't like to talk about your experiences too much, but and like keeping in mind that people should stay grounded in this reality as well. What's been your most intense experience on DMT?
Well, I had some dark ones that are obviously very intense. And so I'm familiar with these kind of, escapes where it's trying to like lock you in and it tries to convince you that there's nothing but it and you. And
what does it look like?
It doesn't look like, it feels like. It's almost like all the dark entities, it's kind of like their way of doing it. They're trying to, because nothing can intervene with your perception of free will, so like the process by which you execute these like decisions, the only way to achieve something, if something is trying to cajole you to do something, is by convincing you that you must. And one of the best ways to do it is to scare you into a situation where you feel helpless. So there's like just you and it, and you're alone in the world with it. And it's,
Do they feed off fear? Is that a big
I think
thing?
some of them do, yeah. Well, I mean, again, you're talking about a particular kind of energy, but yeah, definitely.
What is that? I feel like I've experienced that thing the most. And that seems to be a common, I mean, if you look at, what is it, Pennywise, like the being from Stephen King's universe, and I'm sure Stephen King has like gone down all these rabbit holes studying horror more than any other human, but like Pennywise feeds off fear. Dementors in Harry Potter feed off fear. Like there's like this common theme of like beings that feed off fear. Like what is that? What this thing is to you?
I mean, I think it makes perfect sense if you think of a space in which you live in a pure meaning space, then these emotions they're like energy, like food, and then the kind of emotion is almost like the flavor of the dish. So it makes sense that if there's a creature that has a palate for that, they would try and squeeze you for that emotion as much as possible so they can feed off of it. That's actually not that crazy to me. It makes perfect sense.
Do you avoid these? Like, is there any way to control what's happening to you on DMT?
You can, well, what you can do is claim your sovereignty. From my experience, no matter how scary it is, if you state clearly, and it has to be clearly, it cannot be kind of like the way you feel. If you say things like, I am now closing my space to, and will not allow any being that doesn't have my best interest at heart, something like that, to enter my space, they're obligated to exit your immediate environment.
I'm shocked that I'm even sharing this, but I commonly say something along the lines of, I lovingly reject all beings that aren't aligned with the highest
And it
possible
still happens?
good. Sometimes, yeah.
Interesting.
But I feel like that's a whole other rabbit hole. Is just the idea that language itself is an alien parasite, because I feel like you can say something, but it might not feel true. And I think the feeling the true is more important than the actual words that you're saying.
Yeah.
So I can say that, but I might not actually mean that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. The words are just a representation of something inside. Exactly.
Right.
And it's interesting because you are, you became really known through that, right? Through interacting with these like darker things. There's some fascination you have with it. I've noticed that's like an imprint in some people. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Yeah. It's, I used to be terrified of horror movies. I would never watch a horror movie. And then I did this content and became a little more not interested in it, which is a big reason I stepped out of crime content. Was I wasn't too interested in crime cases and horror and just like what it did to my mind. But yeah, it definitely made me a little more comfortable with it. But interesting. So maybe what's the biggest revelation that you had on DMT? Maybe not about this universe, but the way that things run.
The biggest revelation was that God doesn't know why everything exists, and that's why all the simulations happen. Because it's God trying to answer that question.
Is there a top base layer God?
I think there's a unified force that you can call the God Almighty, yes. And I think that it executes all. So if you find yourself to be the ultimate thing, and you can do anything, and you exist in just infinity. Now, some people would insist, well, that means that it always exists in an infinite love space. Like, okay, well, that's maybe, but what if not? What if it just kind of evolves still, right? And then in the context of being completely alone, you have no idea why you're there, and you can do anything, nothing means anything. It's just like everything's kind of empty. So then the two games you can play is you can A, try and answer the one question you don't know the answer to, kind of like the ultimate question or the ultimate answer. And the other one is, can you learn how to just be forever, just like truly, like just in harmony and peace, right? So it's, I guess, more of the Western versus Eastern kind of attitude, right? And I think those extend all the way to the ultimate. So it's almost like it fractured itself to infinite conscious units through all of these simulations that both trying to come up with some answer to the ultimate question, and at the same time, some of it tries to learn how to just be. And then kind of at the end of time, there has to be this moment where both of these attitudes kind of combine into the ultimate objecthood, and then they you can consolidate. You can kind of, okay, do we have some kind of a ultimate question, ultimate answer, or do we have this ability now to just be in ultimate love forever? I think that's the ultimate kind of game that is being played.
And then if we skip down some layers, you think this universe is ran by like insectoids?
It seems that what I'm seeing, the management company that's responsible for making sure that space-time itself is coherent and never breaks down in any way, are these insectoids, it seems. Yeah, they're kind of running this part of the simulation.
What have your experiences been like with them?
So this is where it gets very esoteric. And it's, by the way, what you said before, it's not that I don't like to talk about about my experiences. Just I just feel like, okay, so somebody tells you that's their experience. I don't know how much water that would hold for me. That's the only reason
But other people have shared the insectoid.
Yeah, the insectoids are very, very common. I'll be honest, I'm not actually sure which one comes first, which one is the chicken and which one is the egg. Because you can have a situation where all the gods and all of that stuff, it's actually the ultimate reality. And inside of all the simulations that are being run from the source, one of the species that is doing a thing, working for the source, is these insectoids that are kind of responsible for this layer of reality. Or it's actually the insectoids who are like literally the civilization that is running everything, within which all of these ideas of gods and all of that stuff is also part of the simulation somehow.
That's what I was curious of. You don't know the answer to that one?
No,
Oof.
But that's a big one.
What are the different types of entities that you've seen on DMT?
Insectoids, jesters, dark entities, angelic entities, or kind of like, Jesus realm kind of stuff. Lizard people, I guess you can call them, like amphibians. And these, the ones that are really interesting, they don't really have a shape, but they're almost like, I guess it's what you would call the boogeyman, but it's not part of the dark entities. It's more of almost like a cloud of, it almost just like moves between, and it likes to the reason I call it, maybe it's more the boogeyman because it likes to kind of come behind you, but not to scare you. It just likes this game of hide and seek kind of thing. And I've heard others describe this. I don't know. I don't have a name for it, but it definitely seems to have like a lot of power in terms of multi-dimensional operation. It can kind of jump from one place and all of a sudden appear from here. It's, and I think it's just different species. It's like a whole ecosystem that exists. And I think they're all real. It's just that and it seems that this is where we really get into truly wild territory. But I actually think that in some parallel worlds, I do think the many worlds model is correct. Humans like us did already learn this larger structure, and they've kind of entered the family of all the beings that can kind of come in and work. Like they know about the space. They go into hyperspace. I've seen regular people on DMT. Other people, they're not us. They're like other people from somewhere else, but they're humans, like clearly. Straight up. Like I've seen like somebody talking like on TV, like this Asian guy in uniform. As real as you are to me right now. Like in the console, I saw this screen and I just see somebody talking to someone else. It's almost like I'm eavesdropping on a conversation from the side, and they're doing their own thing. And I mean, again, for anybody who's super skeptical, it's like, okay, so this is your hallucinations. Well, if you know enough about DMT, you don't usually see humans. You don't usually see like people, especially not that coherently, so.
What's like the closest thing to us? Like if we're imagining this as realms of enlightenment, like what's the first thing people usually see, or what's the first thing you saw?
You mean like the hierarchy kind of?
Yeah, like what is in, like if you had to guess, like if you did DMT right now and saw things in this room.
If I just do a little bit of DMT, I see the console comes up, and then I see certain maybe beings kind of enter. They kind of look like this translucent thing, almost like the Predator becoming invisible, kind of like that. But if I go to hyperspace, I usually encounter the insectoids. And in fact, I've with the console, what came is an ability I have now to kind of see the behind the scenes. So like, I would see things on you. Like I would see this almost like a helmet. It's very, very minimal. It's almost like from here to here and from the sides, and it has very gentle and iridescent energy moving through it. And I can see it as clear as day. And then I would see these machines that would come in, and they would be the ones that propel you to these hyperspaces. And what they do, I feel it very cleanly. They play with your energetic centers. So they would like make this more amplified, and then they would diffuse this one, and they would vibrate here a little bit different, and almost like they're playing you like a flute kind of thing. And then this machine that would sit right here would like vibrate around my head in a very particular frequency, very high. It goes like, you can barely hear it, like beyond a dog whistle. And you just like, and it's almost like they punched in an address, and now they give you fuel, energy, vibration to go to that place, and you land exactly there. That seems to be how the navigation is working. And I think that people who do like astral projection and out-of-body experiences, things like this, I think what they learned probably is somehow naturally doing that by themselves. I could never do it, but I know I have some friends who can do out-of-body on command and things like this, which I'm fascinated by.
So DMT, there's multiple states. Like one state is like in this room, and then one state is them literally sending you to a hyperspace. And then,
yeah, you can be fully. You've never done DMT?
mm-mm.
Okay, so DMT in the beginning, when you just smoke it, it makes it feel like somebody pumped all the air out of the room. It's almost like you're in a vacuum now. It's almost like a lack of sound, and then everything becomes super clear, HD, sharp. And then if you smoke more, then you would usually hear the noise. It's like this, it's some kind of a rising frequency, and then you would find yourself in some other place. It's very common to have that sequence of events, basically, to the extent that people can kind of map it.
Interesting. What happens when you look at the planets or like the stars?
You know, a lot of people report the grid that they see in the sky on mushrooms and things like this. I actually don't think I've ever seen the grid. I know what people are talking about, but I wonder if they're misinterpreting something, or maybe there's something I'm not seeing. I'm not sure. But I personally, when I look up, I don't really see much.
What's it like to make art on DMT?
That is a very interesting question. So I'm not an artist, but my wife is. And she once, she's, when she smokes, she doesn't do it very often, but in the times that she did, her art looks different. And then there was this one time, which just blew me away. I'm watching her sitting on a chair, very kind of like in a weird position where she doesn't usually sit, and she just like kind of does something. And it was almost like, like in a weird, eerie scene where you're like, what is going on? And so I kind of like went around her, and I'm watching her just bawling, just crying and painting. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I'm not doing this. And literally it would like pick a color. She's like, I'm not doing this. And literally it would, and we still have I'll try and find it and send it to you. It looks completely different than anything she's ever done. It's a cool piece. But she was literally sitting there like this, like looking at me, and the thing is just like her hand is just painting.
Have you ever like written anything and like had that similar experience?
No. That would be an interesting one.
Huh.
What do you think would come out of something like that? Like a message or?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Do you think Jesus took psychedelics?
No. It seems to me that he was the real deal.
In terms of?
He was the Messiah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do the DMT entities tell you about Jesus?
Oh, they just showed me that Jesus is everything that we think he was, or what Christians think he was.
And you were atheist before.
I'm still. Atheist is the wrong word right now. I'm still secular in my perception. So, like, I understand that it's still a thing. Like, we just don't understand it. But for all intents and purposes, they showed me that, yep, Jesus is God embodied, came here to do what we believe, and he basically bought our karma. He holds our karma collectively, so we don't have to suffer the consequences of our own mishaps, basically.
Do you think Jesus was an alien?
I think it depends how you define. You mean in the physical space? No. But he is an alien to us. I mean, gods are a different... So what I was shown is that gods are a different thing, right? This is where all the stuff that you said about me being... trying to be, as coherent as possible, this is where it flies out the window, because anybody who... More from the scientific side, this is where they check out. But, I mean, it is what it is. I just have to follow the signal, right? So if I take this seriously, if I want to be coherent, I also have to take the other things they're showing me seriously. And the other thing they showed me is that, gods are not us. We're not on our way to become gods. We're a completely different thing. We're not, all of us together we amount to way more, but not that. That's a different species. So for all intents and purposes, they are a very, like, all the worlds we're in is some space that they made. They live in a completely different space. And we talk about the multiverse. So like the multiverse they're outside of that. That's the scales we're talking about here. So then they can see through everything, including through us. They can see through everything, but we're not them. But we are a piece of them, I guess you can say. But you're not them. It's not the same. You're not on your way to become that. It's not the same kind of thing. And Jesus, in that regard, it's almost like there's this infinite space of rules, and it's only when you follow a certain kind of set of rules is when you end up kind of in a better position as you go up the levels. And from what I understood, it's almost like Jesus is the instantiation of making all the right moves for us until we get our act together, so to speak. So they're kind of like holding that for us, the karma.
Is he is the Christian Bible like accurate then?
I don't know. I'm not getting into all the details of whether the exact stories exactly how they're written.
Right, but it's not Gnosticism.
No.
Interesting.
No. Yeah, definitely not. So it's like, and what was interesting about that vision is that they could have showed me, if they wanted to, they could have said, you know that thing that you believe Jesus to be? Okay, so that thing, I mean, it's not Jesus, but it's kind of this other, like, they could have done that, right? But no, they just, like, exactly how it appears in the Bible. They're like, that exact thing.
Have you seen Jesus?
Yeah, I saw him ascending. He wasn't coming to me, but I saw him going up to like the, whatever that is. It's interesting. There's clouds here. But also from what I understood from it is that the transition we're going through now is basically the transition of the age. So like Jesus is kind of finishing his contract, and we're transitioning to an age in which we have more responsibility. It's almost like we're buying some of the karma back, and that we're supposed to kind of hold ourselves accountable collectively. So we can't do it personally yet. We're not advanced enough, but we can collectively hold each other accountable, which it seems that's what's happening, because we're kind of like starting to kind of really, it's like, hey, can we get our act together here kind of thing. And there's going to be a lot of turmoil because of that. I really think we're going through some kind of a birth process into some kind of a new state.
Do you think the end of civilization is coming soon for any reason?
Maybe this one, but not in the same way that you imagine the end of the world to be. It's a transition of a stage that will continue in a different form. I'm always quoting Terence McKenna here because I think it's helpful. He said that if you walk into a birth and you don't know what's going on, it looks like an emergency. And if you think from the perspective of the fetus, and if you imagine we're the fetus, then the walls are closing in. This very comfortable space you were in starts pushing you out. Where are you going? You have no idea. There's some kind of a light at the end of it. But when you come out, now try and imagine, how do you explain to a fetus what being a lawyer is? It's like there's nothing you can, not in terms of language, not in terms of even the similarity of the space. So like, it's in a fluid, and here it's in air, and like what is the light? And there's nothing you can say to the fetus, right? So we're in a similar situation, I think.
When do you posit that will happen?
I'm not big on prophecies. I used to say I'm actually placing it very close, as close as next year. But I don't know. All I do is that I know that everything that I was talking about before about kind of getting your reel it back in, and just bring it to here. I think that's a very important component of that process, because you can either claw your way out, or you can just accept and just kind of flow with it.
So I'll just run through some of these with you. Like they validated Jesus for you. How about, I can cut it if you want, Muhammad?
I've never seen any vision of it, so I don't know. But also Muhammad is not postulated to be divine. It's postulated to be a prophet. Yeah.
Numerology, astrology?
I think those make perfect sense in terms of simulation, because...
Numerology does to you?
Oh, of course. I mean, think about it. Like, the connections are just way vaster than we consider. So, like, when we have synchronicities, and numerology, by the way, is kind of like a tailor-suited synchronicity, right? you instantiate relationships where the relationship should technically not exist, or why do they make sense? Nobody knows, right? So if there's a larger operational space of computation in the background, maybe it follows that. So like the synchronicity that happens to you, right? All of a sudden you thought of someone, they called. Well, if it's just the laws of physics, this doesn't make a lot of sense. But if there's another space behind it with these computational layers of the connections between all the humans and all that stuff, then your thought either was the inducer of that other channel and kind of like how you communicate, or it was the product of that person already wanting to call you, and at the same time you already got the signal on you, and you're like, oh, I thought about that person, but they were about to call you anyway, and it kind of happened. And actually, that thing that you were telling me, the connection that you had with your girl, I mean, this sounds like it went into like a dark place, but what I saw is that we, in the same vision, by the way, with the Jesus, is that within the world that they created for us, we're all sitting in our own world, like completely alone. You're with your VR glasses with infinite possibility space that happens according to what makes the most sense to you. And others are real. So like I'm real in my world, you're real in your world. And in your world, I'm an avatar. I'm like a projection. But that avatar is informed by the mainframe about what the real Danny would do in these situations. So you get a pretty close representation to what kind of interaction you would get from me in that state, according to my level of development in that time, in my own sandbox. But there's one channel that if we enter it, it's like the safe channel, which is the channel of universal love. Like if you actually enter that state, it's almost like the system recognizes that and it moves you together. The degree to which you are in that state, it would move both of these people from their sandbox to a shared sandbox, like together. And then you're actually in the presence of the real conscious person, which would make some sense, even though it just sounds very romantic, of why when people fall in love, it feels like you're the only ones in the world. Because you literally are the only two conscious beings in that instance in the world. You know how sometimes you talk to someone and it's just like, what? Like you don't even know I don't even know how you don't even know what they had to do in their head to end up in saying what they just did, or like it's so far out that you just know they're somehow that avatar is just like so disjointed from where you are in your mental space that they're literally further away from you in the mental space. And I think that ultimately what the enlightenment for humanity is kind of like this process by which everybody are learning how to enter that channel of love. And if everybody can, then everybody would together be transported into this shared space, which, by the way, would make sense of some of the stuff like, the telepathy tapes and things like, I'm sure you've heard of it, right? Yeah. So one of the things that these kids are talking about is like how loving the hill feels, like when they're all together and they can literally see each other and hear each other, and they're probably closer to that channel of love. And by the way, I think the code, and this is just an assumption, might be seeing kind of the walls between the realms. Like it's almost like you see the fabric between what separates the layers.
Outside of DMT, have you experienced any normal glitches in reality?
Yes. Well, actually, that's not true because DMT was involved, but it happened in the real world. So I had my phone glitch, like straight up, like go into like chaos mode. Brand new phone that I got 2 days before from Verizon, like straight up like a new phone. And something happened. I had like a very big experience. It's a long story, so I'm not going to bother with it right now. But like there's like a big experience. And then my phone literally, I was showing someone a video and right after. And it just went into like the whole phone for like 6 minutes. So it was playing a video and it went into this, like I recorded it. And the friend took his phone and started recording it. And I was like, what the And also the content that was being playing in the background of this happening. And then it just went into normal. And then we watched it again. The video was normal. But we already recorded the thing. Like we have the evidence that this happened. And I asked a friend of mine who's like this genius, MIT guy, blah, blah, blah. And I asked him, Tony, how can this happen in a phone? He said, what do you mean, like technically? I'm like, yeah. Well, he said, technically, the only way this can happen if the data wasn't corrupted is that you would have to put a very powerful magnet exactly where the hard drive feeds the information to the screen. And if you put it on that one piece, this can do something like this. But then he said, but why it happened the way it happened to you with the thing, if there was no magnet there, I have no idea. Like what this is. Yeah, that was probably one of the craziest things that ever happened to me. And the fact that it allowed us to record it. Like usually things like this happen and it's just kind of like, whoop, and it disappears, you know? So you can just maybe tell the tale, but that's it. It let us record it.
Danny, what conspiracy do you believe is 100% true?
Wow, man. I don't think anything that people believe is 100% true because things are way more complicated always. I'm becoming a little bit more comfortable with the idea that there might be a layer of the ultra wealthy that are, doing all this fuckery in the background. And to people, it would maybe sound surprising, like, why do you need to get comfortable with that? That's so obvious. To me, that's not obvious because I believe that for the most part, people are good and they're just trying to do their best. And maybe it's just the fact that I do know some people that, are a little bit like wealthier and powerful. And I always see somebody who's really well-intentioned. So it's kind of hard for me to believe that people just like, oh, they're just trying to like do evil things. But I think that if the incentives are right, I think it's not that crazy to believe. I do think, though, that ultimately it's a failure. It's an attempt and a failure versus an aim for something that is nefarious. You know what I mean? Like, still, I think that there's an attempt to do something that results in that versus just them, like, literally plotting to just control the population and things like this. But I'm becoming a little bit more comfortable with that idea.
And are these people using just spiritual technology that we have access to, or is it like a connection with the worlds that you're familiar with?
I personally, as you can hear by the kind of how I'm thinking about this, I was never like, again, I'm always assuming the best, actually, always. But I've heard from some people that I trust their opinion very strongly, that they were exposed to this kind of stuff that you're kind of describing, the whole Hollywood and, moving energies and all that stuff. And these people who I trust their opinion swear by it. They're like, nope, like I'm telling you, I've seen it. They're doing it. In fact, one of the I don't know if they want to be mentioned by name in this context, but that person told me maybe 4 years ago, so way, way before all this happened. He told me about Diddy, and I'm like, He's like, I'm telling you, and I'm like, no. He's like. And then when it happened, he sent me a text just with a smiley. He's like, I know. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, he's like, believe me, I know.
Can you give us a hint?
The story that he told me is that and this is a story that I've seen other people tell, but again, this is a person who's not hyperbolic. He's not making things up. Like, he's a serious guy. And also super successful. Like, he's not somebody who's just like bored and, and then he told me that one time he was in a house somewhere in the hills, and he's a musician, so he was like part of this, like, and not at Diddy's place, but some other place. And then somebody was in the kitchen. He entered the kitchen. That person was like making up with this hot girl, and then that person saw him, and that person looked at him, and he said, I saw it as clear as day. I literally saw his face move, and I saw this like demonic like thing. And he looked at me, and I saw that I saw him, and he kind of smiled at me. And then the face went back, and he's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And he just like, and he left. And I'm like, and I said, but he's like, Danny, you know me. I'm telling you, this was as clear as day. Like, and I was like, all right. So I'm uncomfortable with these, not because they scare me or something, but because I'm always assuming that it's actually usually people just make a lot of shit up, right? That's my first assumption, which is funny because I'm in the position that I'm in, right? Saying the things that I'm saying. But, and a lot of people assume that maybe I'm making shit up. But if it comes from people that I trust their opinions, I don't feel like I'm at liberty ignoring what they're saying. And this happened more than once. Like I've had a few people that I really trust their opinion that told me things like this. So
I've seen that one time.
Tell me
on a podcast.
On a podcast? No, I know. He sent me the black kid.
No. I'm saying that like when I was filming a podcast.
Oh, got it. Wow.
That's all I'll say about that. But
you're not going to tell us what that was?
Well,
It was now. Shit.
it was in this interview. No, I'm joking. It was some time ago, but it was interesting. I'll have to tell you off camera what happened there. But
Sure. That exact thing? Or kind of something very
maybe
similar?
not like this, but glitching.
Wow.
Has an entity ever told you don't tell anyone this?
No, that I asked. And they were very clear. It was like full force ahead.
Has there ever been like one thing though that they're like, keep this between us?
There's definitely instances where much more ambiguous. And I had like, I don't know what you want to call it, but maybe arguments with them, which is kind of like, hey, make up your mind. Like there was instances in which, because they're, from what I understand, they're not fully, like they also have their own kind of politics and ideas, and they don't all agree. Some of them, from my understanding, are like under the perception that, hey, lower layers should never know. It will disturb them too much, whatever, all that stuff. And others are like, that's, who are we to say? I guess it's more the liberal aliens. But they're you know, there's not always an agreement, it seems. And I've caught them arguing with each other one time, and that's when they're like, okay, can we do this way? And it was so confusing to me that I said, hey, look, I really have the best intentions, but like, make up your mind. Like, who am I talking to? Is this your court system? Like, who's saying? Is it like the ultimate kind of arbiter? And then, okay, let me know. But until that moment comes, don't come to me with this like, no, you should do this. No, you should. Don't do that. Like I'm doing what I'm doing because that's what felt right in the moment, and that's what I also asked if it's okay. You said it's okay. That's what we're doing. And also, people always say, like Danny Jones asked me this, like, do you think this was something we're not supposed to find? I'm like, why would it be discernible? They could have just make it wiggles. Like, why would they make it something that people can kind of distinctly understand, right? I think it tells me that it's probably more of a breadcrumb.
Oh, I was gonna directly ask you if like you were gonna share the thing, but
Share what thing?
like if there was something that would be too disturbing for people to hear. But
That's a good question. That's actually a really good question. So there's something not necessarily, I don't know if it's disturbing, but there's something that I'm already not saying. So there's like in that vision with the Jesus bit, there's something that was shown to me at the end that I literally sat there just, I guess, the scale of it. And my then girlfriend, now wife, was sitting next to me, and she got a little concerned because at that point I was just like silent for like frozen for like a few minutes. And she's like, what, are you okay? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. And she's like, what? And I was like, relax. I'm like in a state. But also I basically looked at her and I realized, oh, I'm not sure if this is like that one. I wasn't sure if it's for me to just carry or to potentially talk about. And then I said, well, I'll just live it. And then I told her, like, on our deathbed, I'll tell you what I saw. And I don't know. It might just be for me to live or something that people need to know. But then I'm because of the scale of the thing, I'm trying to live through the way of the Tao, but truly, not like as a thing I say, right? So I kind of follow the next moment and how it feels. Sometimes I would start saying something to someone, even a thing that I've said a million times before, but in that moment, something would happen. Somebody would cough very loudly, or like something would fall, or I would get like, in my throat. Something would happen, or it would just feel weird. I'd be like, that's not, sometimes I would have to like literally like, sorry, I think we're not supposed to be, and I would just stop. There was one in a podcast recently where we have two dogs, and my younger one, he was behind me, and he was sleeping on the couch, and I was saying something, and actually it was along the lines of very similar things I already told you here. But when I started saying the thing about to that particular person about the space that we're all in, and I said, and we've been and I've been shown that we're in a, and then he goes, like, he sometimes barks in his dream, so that sounds like a, and it was like right when I was about to say it, and I was like, and then I was like, okay, maybe it's a coincidence. And I went, they showed me that, like, he goes like, I was like, okay, so I think maybe we're not supposed to be talking about this, and just kind of change the subject. So like that would happen sometimes, but I think it's also situational. So I think ultimately it's trying to guide us. That's my assumption. And some moments are proper for some things and others are not. And you just have to kind of discover. It's not like certain truths are always relevant, and maybe there might even be moving things in a way that it shouldn't move. But it really depends on the exact situation, the exact time, the exact person.
what's the one truth you feel like is extremely relevant right now?
dial down your conviction. You don't know as much as you think you do. That's a really good advice everybody can follow. If you feel too much thrust, emotional thrust, that would be the thing that can end humanity. Because when we do this en masse and we stop listening, that's when things get out of control. And it applies to the obvious things like political convictions, and it moves to even very personal spaces. If you have an idea of someone versus actually just being in the presence of them, you're most likely wrong.
That's the most true. It feels like the biggest problem right now. Just with media, political bifurcation, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If someone's terrified of psychedelics because they don't want to change their outlook on life and want to stay the same cognitively, what would you say to them?
Something is wrong with them. No, I'm kidding. No, it's definitely not for everybody. These psychedelics, they're tools, and I think this needs to re-enter the conversation. I think we've done enough to advertise these things as magic things, and it's wonderful. It can be wonderful. They're not magic cures. They're just open channels. And what you do when the channel is open is the thing that determines what will happen. I always think of it like, mushrooms, for example. They're more like glass blowers, right? You heat up the glass so you can reshape it. It's kind of what mushrooms do to your psychology. So you can help reshape it. But then it solidifies. And if while you were in state and it was a little bit more malleable, something punched through the glass and now it will solidify with that hole in it, well, that's no bueno. Like that's not good news, right? So it's not the psychedelics. It's what you do while you're in state. So if somebody wants to stay how they are, it's not a matter of staying how you are. They're gentler tools. And then just rewind to all my spiel about meditation. Vipassana retreats, they're free. They're everywhere. Just sign up and dedicate 10 days of your life. That's it.
Which retreats?
Vipassana? Vipassana is one form of mindfulness. And it's a worldwide organization that it's always free. Like it's donation-based, so you can donate if you want, but you don't have to. Just type in Vipassana, VIPASSANA, I think, but people can look it up. And then just where you live, and it will show you the closest location to you. It's 10 days, silent. You're being taught. It's the closest to what the Buddha actually taught, which is just the way that you pay attention to sensations. It will reformulate everything you think is possible for you. In 10 days, you can absolutely change everything you think is possible. And there's no magical thinking. There's just your ability to control your attention in a particular way. You don't have to do psychedelics. You don't have to see a lot of explosions. What psychedelics do is allow some of that openness to happen, something you can do naturally, but they also add a lot of pyrotechnics and also a lot of content. You can do all of the healing you need to do without any of the content. It's just your openness is what does the trick.
You have retreats as well, right?
Oh, we actually, thank you for mentioning this. Yeah, we're starting a retreat now. I'm going to be doing one on February 28th, but then I'll try and do them quarterly. A lot of people ask me to obviously, do the thing, and I never felt like it's the right thing to do because I felt like just showing people the laser, I wanted people to benefit from, I don't know what the benefit is. I just know it's true. So I'm making information available. But I've created now something that I feel very comfortable with. So I've brought enough incredible facilitators in their domains that I know they're doing incredible work with these medicines. And so they'll be available, and anybody